Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants.
Let's go, Giants!
With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
Standing on time, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down. Calling all, we're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a giant tonight.
It's Thursday, February 27th, 2020, and this is episode 190 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. And I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me today, as always, is a new puppy owner, I've heard. Eric, what's going on, man? How's the puppy?
Millie Grace, she's doing fine. We adopted a puppy 2 days ago, so my sleep schedule's whack. It's funny, Chad texted me right as I woke up today to schedule the time that we were going to record. And let me tell you, folks, that was like an hour and a half ago. And it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. So the puppy had me up late because she would not shut down. So I got to get used to this. But hey, maybe she's putting me in baseball sleep schedule because I'm going to be up later starting in 28 days. 28 days. You know, we are 4 weeks. Am I right? 4 weeks away from the baseball season.
That's great. It can't get here soon enough. But at least we do have some baseball to talk about. Spring training has started. The Giants are 5 games into their Cactus League season, which is just fine and dandy. They're 2-2-1. I was listening to yesterday's game, and I was actually editing the notes. And it was 3-0 in the ninth. And so, of course, I wrote in the notes the Giants are 3-1-1.
That explained that.
And then right when I typed it in, I was like, oh, that probably just put the nail in the coffin. I was joking to myself. And then it happened. It was a bad inning for the Giants, and the Brewers
Who blew
tied
the lead?
it. Oh, you know what? I can't remember. It was a kid I hadn't heard of, but in the minors, he had like 8 saves or something. So
it was this guy, you know.
He just shit the bed, you know. It was just knock, 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 and before you knew it, Brewers tied it. But that's okay. Spring training doesn't matter. This is, again, about development and what have you. But so far, the Giants are hitting .265 through those 5 games with 5 bombs and 26 runs, so they're averaging just over 5 runs a game. And so far, there are a few players of note. Joey Bart, in his very first spring training at bat, took a low and outside pitch and just crushed it the opposite way, like by a ton. And that, to me, I mean, that was so impressive. And I love the sound of that crack, man. It was so melodious. I don't know what it was. It was just that deep, you know, crack of the hickory or whatever it was. But yeah, he jacked it over. He's now, 4 for 6 with a home run and a double. And so I haven't been able to watch him too much or watch really any of these games. Not all of them are televised. But how much have you been able to participate with your eyeballs?
I watched opening day against the Dodgers, or maybe that was the second day. Yeah, I missed opening day because the game got pushed back and I had other commitments. But I watched the second game in Camelback Ranch against LA, and it was nice to see just them play. And then other than that, I basically watched the videos on the At Bat app because they give you the best, you know, little recap of, you know, who hit the ball hard, who drove some guys in, you know, like they've got Dick's 2-run double. You know, they've got a recap of the game. So that's usually where I'm going right now to get my spring training visual news, you know, and when I get to see the swings of the bat.
Well, who else? Let's see. Joey Rickard, he's 3 for 5 with a run knocked in. Ryan Howard, not the Ryan Howard of the Phillies, of course, 4 for 7 with a bomb. And Mauricio Dubon is 2 for 5. I know, that was bad. 2 for 4 with a solo shot.
No, but I said, "Oh my God," because Doobie is apparently the guy that's opening eyes in camp. There was a whole write up about how he played center field yesterday, and the irony is he just bought a new center fielder's glove or outfielder's glove this year, and he broke it in. And then when it was time for him to take the field as the replacement for Billy Hamilton yesterday, he lost his glove and he had to borrow somebody else's glove, Westbrook's glove. Before he went out there, and then he finally was able able to retrieve his glove. But Doobie himself, he created a run on the bases. He seems to be the early buzz so far in Giants camp. They like his versatility. He's the prototypical future Giants type player, and so it's good to see him coming through so far because he's easy to root for.
He's real easy to root for, and he grew up a Giants fan, of course, with roots in the Bay Area, and he looks like he's having fun playing the game. The way his social media goes, he loves Marvel stuff. He's just a little kid, a little bit of a geek. He's a Giants fan. He's totally into this, and I don't know. There's something about those kids that are into it with that kind of passion. A lot of them, end up succeeding because it's not just a job to them. This is their lifelong dream. So it's really cool to see him excelling so far, and hopefully he's going to be one of the newer successful Giants, much like the old farm system from the early part of the decade.
That's what Hank Schulman was talking about yesterday, how Dubon just has that vibe of the players we fell in love with at the 09-10, turning point of this franchise. And, it's really cool to see because we need that as Giants fans. We have the old tried and true Belt and Crawford and Posey, but it's the old tried and true. We haven't had new blood really step in since Hunter Pence came to the team in 2012 and infuse it. So hopefully Doobie's that guy. And then I saw you got Nick Vincent underneath Dubon, who's had the opposite kind of spring. Yeah, he's given up 4 hits and 3 of them are bombs, which is not a good start. Gaussman, who's going to get a shot at the rotation, he's so far thrown 2 hitless innings. As your Crawford's 2 for 4 with a homer, but Posey, Belt, and Hamilton are each 0 for 6. Hamilton doesn't surprise me. But I watched Posey and Belt a couple different times, with the videos and then the game I watched. And I just don't think their timing's there yet. I think they still need some time to come around.
Yeah. I mean, it's just 0 for 6. It's fine. Just something of note, something to watch. But, a lot of times these veterans, not Hamilton. Obviously, Hamilton's trying to make the team. So he's not going to be, quote, experimenting. But Belt and Posey, a lot of times these veterans go into camp. And it doesn't matter what they hit, but it gives them an opportunity to work on parts of their swing and mechanics and timing and stance and whatever it may be against major league or close to major league level pitching without kind of fearing any consequences from it. So it's a nice workshop kind of venue for the veterans. And so hopefully they're working on something. If not, they're just going through the paces. Well, there you go. I guess we're not going to see anything different from those 2 this year. I mean, hopefully Posey, with his hip, coming in, to FanFest and out of spring training, they've talked to him a couple of times, and they said, how does the hip feel compared to last year? And he said last year it definitely was not 100%, and he says it's pretty much there now. So that does give a little bit of hope to maybe some of us Giants fans thinking that maybe he just wasn't quite to that 100% last year, and maybe that explained his lack of power, because that's what we've all been waiting to see is when his hips heal, is he going to get that hip action and torsion to whip the ball out and, hit 15 to 20 home runs like he used to. I just don't see it happening, Eric. It just seems like this is who he is now. He's older. He's not old. He's just older. And his body's it's beat up from the major injuries and just the toll of catching. And I just think he's to a point now where he's going to be a 250 to 280 hitter, hit 5 to 10 jacks and, 40 RBIs. But he's going to be excellent defensively still.
I think we'll really know if his swing comes back if he shows gap-to-gap power, because he used to drive the ball to right center with authority, and he would sometimes split that left center field gap where he just caught that ball at the sweet spot, and he would backspin it, and he did it so hard that it would split the left center field gap. So I think that'll give us an indication on whether or not he's back. When it comes to Belt, did you see what JT Snow said on KNBR the other day?
Oh, it was like he has to have a good year or something like that. Or he
does, yeah. He said he's on the hot seat and he's hot big seat, numbers. Right. Yeah. He says Belt needs to hit 280 with 25 bombs and 100 ribbies. And I don't completely argue with the sentiment. I just think those numbers are a bit lofty from what we've seen out of 10 years of Brandon Belt. But he's the guy that I think is going to be to keep the eye on. I've been talking up trading Belt for 2 years now, and I feel like he needs to get on that correct hot streak to really sell himself to other teams as a possibility. Because with the way this team is trending, I mentioned versatility earlier, and that's just honestly the buzzword for me this year. Belt could be replaceable down the line somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I agree with JT. I mean, he's got to put up numbers, but I mean, 25 homers and 100 RBIs. I don't know, man.
That's not happening. But I mean, I was a big Belt supporter, several years ago, thinking, well, every year, he has a freak injury or a concussion or something happens, and he just hasn't been able to exercise his full potential yet. But once he's healthy, he's going to hit 20 home runs and all that stuff. And it's like, nope, never mind. He's just, This is Brandon Belt. This is who he is. And unless something dramatically changes for whatever reason. And it's one thing that actually we should dive into a little bit now, even though I didn't have it in the notes. They were talking about it on KMBR this week, but we all know that it's essentially a brand new coaching staff, minus like Ron Wotus, right? And what's really interesting is they've already been talking to Joey Bart. He was on with Murph and Mac yesterday morning, and I've heard this now from several of the Giants hitters. Joey Bart basically said his whole career he's just been see ball, hit ball. He doesn't go up with any approach. He doesn't think about percentage of pitches and what might be thrown in what count. He's just like, well, maybe it's a curveball, but he's not. It's more on intuition, and he just reacts to the pitch. He said this year coming into camp, the amount of analytics that the coaches are throwing at him hasn't changed his swing mechanically, but has changed his mental approach to the game completely. And he's super excited about applying it in real games. So it was really cool to hear, a young kid like Joey Bart, one of the better prospects for the Giants, really buying into this whole new analytics coaching approach, going, wow, they're revealing things that I didn't know, is what he said. He's like, I feel like I'm much more educated already, and I'm going to go up to the plate with a much better idea of what's going to happen and what to do with the ball, and yada, yada, yada. So, I don't know. I mean, he's a young guy. He's just getting into professional ball, so maybe he's more impressionable and malleable to these ideas. But, someone like a Posey or Belt or whatever, I'm sure things are being suggested to them by these new analytics and coaches and approaches, but I don't know if they're going to stick with the veterans or not. And if they did, will it help? And I'm not suggesting that would be the reason that Belt hits 25 home runs this year. But I think
it could be.
But I think it'll be interesting because, the old brigade is gone. And that's how the players performed for years under that regime. Now that they have this new analytical approach and these new set of coaches with new training techniques, and they're doing weird stuff out there. Like they've been reporting, using fungos in the weirdest ways. They're doing all these knee slide exercises. I mean, they're doing stuff they never used to do in spring training. It's all this, and that's not analytics. That's just newfangled calisthenics training and all sorts of other stuff. It'll be fun to see if any of the veterans or some of the guys we're used to seeing what numbers they put up increase, and that would be proof that maybe this coaching is helping. But if everyone kind of fades back to where they were, then maybe all this coaching is a little bit souped up.
I don't know if it's that or if it's the fact that guys like Belt, Crawford, Posey, and we don't really mean to be singling these guys out. These are just the long-term veterans. Samardzija, he's another one. He's lobbied against the opener, and the Giants might deploy an opener at times this year. It's that type of thing. But the reason these guys, in baseball, things are always changing, and the Giants completely changed the design of their coaching staff after the Bruce Bochy era. And it's up to Posey, Belt, Crawford, etc. to adapt or die. And I think if Posey and them have a hard time picking up with the new coaching staff, they're more likely to be on their way out the door than the coaching staff. I think Zaidi has put everything in place and feels like he now has all the right tools. You mentioned the different, kind of drills and calisthenic type things they're also looking at. I mean, I've heard things where they're not just hitting regular, top spin grounders to third base anymore for infield practice. Like you and me, we've taken infield 1,000 times. And when you take infield, you're just basically banging grounders around the infield, and doing it over and over and over again. And you're not really trying to send a guy to his left or his right or give him a certain type of hit. But apparently the Giants are employing separate fungo hitters to hit the ball differently at different angles and different things like that to the infielders to employ more of a game type situation. And that's just the type of thinking we've not seen out of this club, this organization ever. And it's part of the brave new world that is the Giants. And that's why I think that the veterans need to adapt or die, because young guys like Joey Bart are going to soak it up. They're coming up in a generation where they're used to being able to log onto a computer, to Baseball Savant, to look up the Amazon Web Service, advanced analytics and stuff like that. And while he admitted, he may not have done that stuff before, but now that he's turned on to it, Bart might be keyed into it, and it could improve him that much better. Whereas Posey and Crawford and Belt might have a slower time adapting to such a thing. And that's why adapt or die has just flashed into my head when it comes to the veterans on this ball club. I think that Zede has thrown down the gauntlet and said, you have to either get on board or I'll find somewhere else for you to go.
Well, this is going to be fun. Well, one trade.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm serious. It's such a different ball club. Like, who the hell knows what we're going to watch this year?
Yeah, it's hard to put a pin on it. I mean, Vegas has him at like 67 wins or whatever it is, second worst in the NL. Look, maybe they are going to be that bad, but like you said, there's so many unknown variables coming into the season. And no, they're not gonna win 90 games. I think we all know that. But they could do some things that surprise us this year, and I guess that is a little bit of the allure to this season. Overall, it probably won't be a very good product, but I think there's going to be some good moments. We're going to see this process again of this team in the rebuilding phase, and there might be some trades to stock up the farm system and the draft later in June. So who knows? We'll see what happens. One thing that has already popped up in terms of a trade rumor is Yankees ace Luis Severino, of course, is on the shelf for the entire year. He needs Tommy John surgery. And so immediately people took to Twitter to suggest Johnny Cueto and Jeff Samardzija as two potential trade candidates to be shipped out to the Big Apple. And I guess Jeff Samardzija, this is a tweet from Andrew Baggerly, Jeff Samardzija is amused that his name is already coming up in the Yankees trade rumors. Quote, "Oh yeah, just give me number 2 and don't make me cut my hair." I love that. Samardzija's a funny dude.
How long do you think Samardzija's been in trade rumors to the Yankees in his career? I mean, it had to have been that way back when he was with the Cubs and he first came up. And then he got shipped to Oakland, and then he ended up with the White Sox and before coming to the Giants. So you got to wonder if around all those other trade deadlines, because every year it's like the Yankees need this, the Yankees need that. Who are they going to sign? Yeah. Shark's been through it so long.
We'll see. The trade deadline, of course, is July 31st, and there is no extended deadline this year. That is the final deadline. That's one of the new things this year. So, I don't know. I mean, I definitely could see the possibility of him or Cueto. Probably Cueto would be higher on the list right now, but we'll see how the season progresses. And if the Yankees are struggling to stay atop the NL East because of the rotation depth, then that's something that could happen. But the Yankees are pretty deep right now, so it may be something they don't even need to do, or at least not offer a whole lot if they are interested.
But they have to feel like last season ended because of pitching, though, and the way Boone handled his starting pitching in that ALCS. So he might. Like you said, they might be looking for somebody. I could see Cueto more than Shark, just because I could see Shark wanting to hang in there as an old veteran and getting real chummy with Kapler, and Cueto being shipped out because he still has some life left in his arm, but he's not necessarily. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll both stick and stay, but I think we're going to hear those rumors all season long.
All right, we got a lot more to talk about in this episode. However, we did have a listener send in a song about baseball, and so we're gonna do them the honor. We're gonna play a little musical intermission break here, so enjoy this song. It is called "Baseball Always Brings You Home." It's the newest collaboration between the composer and musician Dave Dresser and Shel Krakofsky. I hope I pronounced that correct.
That's how I would have said it.
So these two put this together, and here it is. Baseball Always Brings You Home.
The gods are here, Babe and Jackie. Wave to Ted, Henry and Sandy. Relax and talk, pause after pause.
All right. Well, that'll do it. Thanks
Play
for
ball.
sending that in. Yeah, play ball. Let's go. Thanks to Shel and Dave for sending that in. You can, well, I'll just put it in the show notes, but you can go listen to that music. They have a YouTube link and a link to davedressermusic.bandcamp.com. So check it out. Thanks for sending that in. And if any of the listeners out there, the one way I got my start as being host on TortureCast is in 2011. I actually was sending in little segments called Out of Left Field. And at the time, Willie and Ben liked them and would put them either in the middle or the end of the show. And they're usually like 2 to 4 minutes. Statistical oddities, fun things to talk about, what have you, with little background music. And so I did that for a few months, and then their third chair left, and so that's when they invited me on. And so kind of the rest is history. But if any listeners out there, want to send anything like music or little segments that are pretty good quality, we'd be more than happy to play them on the podcast, or tag them on at the end.
We should get Willie to send us some.
Yeah, he's been bartending a lot lately.
Yeah, he's busy, but send him a text. Hey, Willie, give us 2 to 4 minutes real quick.
Yeah, 2 to 4 minutes. Come on, do it. Just whip out your iPhone.
Right, just talking to it. Tell us how it's going and send it on its way.
Yeah, I miss him being on the podcast. He's always good, but there's a lot of stuff going on too. So
Willie's
it's
a good time.
understandable.
He's a good man.
All right, so we're going to talk a few things. Some of them are a little controversial, but we're going to have fun diving into it, and we'd appreciate your thoughts if your opinions differ. We certainly like to look at things from the other side. And I'm not saying Eric and I agree on all these things either. I'm just saying if you guys have differing opinions, send them in. We want to hear them, so maybe we'll read them on the show next time. But yeah, we're going to get back to that Astros cheating scandal. We want to talk a little bit about it because now that spring training has started and we've heard, I mean, that was a train wreck, that first day of spring training, when Altuve and Bregman and the owner came out and made their statements. I mean, you talk about the shittiest, just most selfish, tone deaf statements that you could make to the public. They were just dogpiled on. And I know they just like, you keep saying, we just want to move on, we just want to move on, we just want to move on. It's like, no. You don't just move on from this after a 30-second statement. I mean, that's just unbelievable. They think that the public is that naive or gullible or like, it's okay, guys. Yeah, we understand. You cheated, whatever. It's all good. You keep that trophy. Everything's kosher. So, I don't know. How did you feel about those statements a couple of weeks ago?
They just weren't contrite. They just don't seem to be acknowledging that what they did was wrong. And I think that that's what's under most of us fans' skin. Because when it comes to baseball, when it comes to sports, purity and the rules and having the right outcome happen for the right reasons is part of the allure of sports. It's the greatest drama in the world. You never know what you're going to watch. You don't know what's going to unfold. Unless, of course, you're banging on trash cans or buzzing wires to somebody's chest. Mm-hmm. And they just don't seem to acknowledge that they did something wrong. They seem more like, we're sorry we got caught and, Mike Fiers is a jerk type. And the reaction from around baseball has been, I've really appreciated it. These players, they are part of the union that probably protected these Astros players from, seeing penalties for their actions. But even though they're part of the same union, these guys, Cody Bellinger, I think Donaldson says something, they're all coming out and saying stuff against it and questioning these players. And I love it. I really do. Baseball, in a sense, Manfred said the court of public opinion is bad enough for the Astros, and that's why they didn't need extra penalties, which is a load of crap. I mean, that's just an excuse. But so far, the court of public opinion is absolutely hammering the Astros, and they still are. And so are opposing pitchers. The Astros are getting hit 1.42 times a game so far. And the average time a team gets hit is less than half a time per game. So players are getting hit so far in spring training this year. So there will be some policing going on. But I appreciate the players coming out. I appreciate everybody coming out. And I think it adds to the stain that we'll remember this by. Because obviously Rob Manfred's inept. He's horrible as a commissioner. He just doesn't understand. He said they were playing for a hunk of metal. And every guy took offense to that. Rightfully so. I mean,
on both sides of the issue, everybody took offense to that.
I mean, you're the commissioner. It's called the commissioner's trophy. Like, have some class, man. And
Just a hunk
so
of metal.
I right? Like,
Yeah,
your
why do we
name's on
play?
that hunk of metal.
Why do we play? Whatever. Yeah, Justin
Yeah.
Turner got real upset by that. I mean, a lot of players did. And it was good to see because that is what most of these players play for, is to win a championship. It is for that hunk of metal. And, you know, he came out a couple days afterwards and was like, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have called it a hunk of metal. He was like Eeyore out there. And it was like, dude, why did you say that in the first place?
I can't stand him. This isn't like 1953 where the Yankees World Series bonus is the same as their season-long salary. So those guys are playing for more than a hunk of metal. They're literally playing to double their salary. These guys aren't playing to double their salary. They're playing for the hunk of metal. So, you know, it's good to see the way baseball's handling it so far, but it's going to dominate. We got 4 more weeks. It's going to dominate. And then even probably the first half of the season, this story will dominate.
What's crazy about it is, I think Nick Markakis also came out and said, you know, they deserve a beating. He actually said they deserve a beating.
Yes.
And so, it's been really strong around the world, or around the baseball community. And there's been, you know, some players or ex-players, you just kind of go, where are you coming from? I don't quite understand. But Big Papi came out and basically called Fiers a snitch and came down on him hard. And it was like, dude. And I don't know. I think it might be tied to what's coming with the Red Sox. And maybe Big Papi is just get out in front of it, just saying, yeah, he's a snitch, because maybe he knows the hammer is going to drop on the Red Sox too. And even though he's not with the club anymore, he's, you know, that's who he is. Yeah. He's a Red Sox legend. So
it's Big Papi.
Yeah, maybe he's just being protective of the brand. I don't know, because I've definitely heard other players kind of mumble about Fiers, you know, being a snitch. And who was it? I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was Correa, I think. Yeah, Correa, who basically was asked about Fiers. And first of all, Correa, by the way, he was going off for the first 2 or 3 days of spring training with like Ken Rosenthal and company, and he was bringing out like every at bat of like Game 3 and Game 4 and Game 5 of the World Series against the Dodgers, and he was like, okay, so then, you know, I come up and then I hit a double, and this guy comes up and and he's reciting everything, you know, pitch by pitch, batter by batter, basically explaining how there's no way they could have been stealing signs during the World Series, and he basically was citing all of this as proof, right? And what was so funny about that is that, number one, even if you're correct and you didn't steal signs during the World Series, or at least that's what you're saying, you stole them to get to the World Series. Number two, the next day, Manfred came out and confirmed and added upon and said, yes, the Astros used this cheating scam, or at least a variation of it, throughout the playoffs, including the World Series. I mean, Manfred literally came out the next day and just... it was like mud on Correa's face, and he just looked like a little petulant child going, yeah, we haven't done anything wrong. Let's just move on. And he talked about Fiers as well, and he basically said, oh, now he basically comes out. But he was out there smiling. He was out there in 17. He knew what was going on. He had no problem raising the trophy. And it's like, what kind of sophomoric logic is that? Just because he knew what was going on, it doesn't invalidate what he did because he didn't do it sooner.
But
he did it.
He did. Yeah.
Well, he did. He brought it up to Major League Baseball. You're absolutely right about that. And to the A's, too. The A's complained because they knew what was going on. And they tried to keep it internal, basically. And you're right, because Major League Baseball didn't do anything about it, Fiers felt compelled to go public with it. He's like, well, shit, if they're not going to do anything about it, then I'm going to go to the public, and that's going to generate some traction. And it did. That's what started this whole thing. So, I mean, I applaud Mike Fiers. I really do. Because he's a bit of a sacrificial lamb, and there are a lot of players that are upset at him. I don't think rightfully so, because you're upset at a guy who revealed a cheating scandal, and he's the jerk? Like, it's hard.
Right.
The other thing...
I was gonna say Papi is just misinformed. He didn't have all the information to know that Fiers had originally reported. I'll bet you if he knew that, because that was part of Papi ripping him, was why did he come out 2 years later? Why didn't he say something right afterwards? And well, apparently he did. You dumbass, go protect the Boston brand.
Yeah, it's bad. The one thing I've been somewhat surprised about, I do appreciate most of the public's reaction, talk show hosts, and some of them, of course, are much more extreme than I am. They're like, strip the title, ban each player for a year, ban them from the postseason for 2 years, all these things. But of course, you have problems with the fact that you can't. It's hard to punish a whole team that includes a whole set of new players that did not participate in the cheating scandal, and you can't punish them as a result. Yes, you want to punish the franchise, and yes, I think the players who participated should be punished. But it's hard to do things like that. It's hard to ban them from the postseason for 2 years.
That's my dream scenario, though. I would
love it.
If MLB was the NCAA, that's what they'd do. Yeah. And I love the intrigue and the story that it would create. And I'm smiling thinking about how fun it would be, with the Astros down the stretch fighting for a wild card spot they can't claim, or they're 5 games ahead in their division, but it's really the A's and the Angels going at it underneath them, who each have 81 wins, trying to win the division. I just think that would make a great storyline. But you can't do any of those things. The asterisk is there. We'll all remember forever. I mean, you can't vacate titles. We all saw what happened. We all know, we all know they cheated, and they know they cheated. And I think that's the important thing. And I think it'll hit them as they get older.
It's like Bonds with the home run record. Does he have the record? Yes. Everybody puts a mental asterisk by it.
They do. They just do.
Same thing with the Astros championship. And, in Minute Maid Park, they have that World Series banner flying, but to everybody else, that's just a piece of cloth. It means nothing.
Right. It's like Reggie Bush won the Heisman, but it got vacated. But did that change the fact that Reggie Bush won the Heisman? No, the guy still won the frickin' Heisman. It happened. We can't change the past. We can just use the past to make sure that those types of things don't happen again.
I do feel sorry for a lot of the Astros fans, because a lot of them are hiding, kind of going, wow, I'm embarrassed about my team. It's hard to be a fan and all that. But you have some a-holes on social media that are coming out strong in support of their team, going, every team cheats. Come on, every team's doing this. And it's like, well, where's the proof? You can't just say that. And that's what exonerates the Astros. You can't just say all 30 clubs are cheating like this. You have no proof of that. You just
and 30 wrongs don't make a right necessarily.
Yeah, it's so they're just picking on the Astros. They're just because they got caught. All the other teams are doing it. It's like,
whataboutism? Give me a break. You can't deflect like that. I've seen the Astros defenders too, and I don't understand it. I'd be hiding in a hole.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be hiding in a hole. It's just like when a kid gets caught and going, well, she pushed me first. Or, well, he did that too. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. You were caught. That's the evidence we have. So suck it. Yeah, it'll be interesting because, like you said, they're already getting hit at a higher rate. And every single town they go in for the first time, it's going to be pulling the scab off again. You know what I mean? It's going to be a fresh set of fans to just shit all over them. It's going to be so fun to watch, Eric. I want to watch the first game of every Astros Road Series. I really do. I'm like, oh, I can't wait. Because already the first Astros game, these fans had some signs behind home plate, and they weren't, I can't remember exactly what they said. It was like the Houston Asterisks, I think was one of them, right? They weren't offensive. They were just funny, tongue-in-cheek. And immediately, stadium security came over and collected the signs, and they had the... first of all, a lot of the memes came out going, look, Houston stole their first signs of the year.
The jokes write themselves.
They write themselves. And then number 2, they came out with the dumbass, come on, no one believes this. Oh, stadium policy doesn't allow for signs in the stands. Oh, BS. If it was any other year, you wouldn't have had a problem with it. So that's what they're going to face all year, especially in the opposing ballparks is... I don't think Oakland Coliseum's going to be going around and taking signs from their own fans. That's not happening. So there's going to be a lot of funny stuff that happens. There's going to be a lot of creative people out there. There's going to be a lot of booing, a lot of, players getting hit. And I know the Astros themselves are just saying, you know what? Yeah, we know it's coming, but we just got to hunker down and be a team and do our best. And they are a talented team, even without the cheating. So it'll be really interesting to see how they respond as a team and to see how many times they're, a fan does something stupid, like throwing a trash can on the field or something. You know what I mean? In Oakland, they actually already bang on trash cans in the stands. That's like part of their, so that's going to be fun. You might
And
see,
Oakland's their first road series too.
It is.
Yep.
You might see, because there's only like 8,000 that go to every game. Now, of course, the first game against the Astros in the home opener, I'm sure they'll get 20 to 30,000. That's what. Oh my God! Could you imagine several hundred people bringing in metal trash can lids or something, and they're all just like, bah, bah, bah. Oh, it's gonna be great. I can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun.
I agree. Comeuppance.
All right, so I put in here, we just talked about it briefly, but we're all wondering when the Red Sox report is coming because there's been rumors it's imminent. But I'd say baseball, I mean, the only conclusion I can make, and a lot of people are saying this, is that, first of all, you want to get this report out as fast as possible, as soon as possible, because you want to start burying it. You want to get away from it. You want to be able to levy the punishment and move on with the season. However, it might be taking longer because they have evidence coming in still. They are still interviewing people. They're still trying to get everything they can. Or it's more serious than the Astros cheating scandal. I don't know, but I think it's going to be a pretty interesting report. And again, they're not going to strip, as far as I understand, because Manfred didn't strip the 17 World Series. I don't think they're going to strip the 18 World Series.
Well, what's the investigation here? Is somebody hired right now to go back and watch every Red Sox game of the last 5 years? What's the time frame? Like, is it when Cora shows up? Is it before then? Do you then go back, watch the Astros up to? I mean, like, seriously, is it somebody's job right now, you think, to watch and listen at like full volume to see if they can hear banging while watching them? I mean, there's spreadsheets. People have done it out there, but there's got to be somebody's job in the commissioner's office who's being paid to do that right now. That's got to be one of the reasons it's taking a while.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It's a lot of baseball games. That's 200 games a year,
All right. Well, yeah. We'll try to keep this under 5 minutes, but Aubrey Huff a couple of weeks ago was publicly informed. Well, he was privately informed, and then the Giants came out and said, we have reached out to Aubrey Huff, and we wanted to let him know that he is not invited to the 2010 World Series celebration at Oracle Park in August. And, of course, the Giants do these celebrations so well and have over the years. And now it's going to be fun because this is the 10-year celebration of their first World Series championship in San Francisco. And there's going to be one in 2022 and one in 2024. Hey, man, squeeze everything you can, right, out of it to live that
bring
glory.
it back. We need that.
And of course, they invite all the players and coaches back from that team. And you still have Buster Posey on the team. You would have had Madison Bumgarner, but he's not around anymore. And so, they're going to invite everybody, but they publicly said, we're not inviting Aubrey Huff. Now, of course, Aubrey Huff and some of his supporters came out immediately and said it's because his political support of the president, Donald Trump. Now, I think logically we all know that he is not the only Trump supporter out of the Giants team from 2010. We know that as a fact. It's just the general population doesn't allow for that. And traditionally, baseball players are more conservative and Republican than they are Democrat by a wide margin.
I have a fun fact.
Not including Dominican players and Asian players and all that, but we're talking about American players.
There was a poll when Gabe Kapler was with the Red Sox of all the Red Sox players and which way they leaned politically. 24 players said that they leaned Republican. Yeah. One player said he didn't lean Republican, and it was Gabe Kapler. Yeah. And it was just surprising to read that. So like you said, that just shows 24-1 how many baseball players do have those kind of political leanings.
Yeah, and we don't know everybody, but of course Madison Bumgarner, he's conservative. Buster Posey's conservative. Cody Ross is a noted supporter of Trump, not vociferously, just he just voted for Trump or whatever. Pat Burrell's a noted conservative. You go through the list, and there's quite a few of these players that, they support Trump. Okay, fine, whatever, it's your right. They're not assholes about it, and Giants are still inviting them. So it's a fallacy of an argument to say because he supports Trump, that's why the stupid liberal Giants aren't inviting him. Of course, it's because of his horrific public tweets, even some of the interviews. But the tweets that he has thrown out there are so misogynistic, so sexist, so horrible in what he does. And I'm not even going to do him the honor of reading some of them, but I really encourage you, anyone who is doubting that the Giants uninvited him because of his political support and not because of his horrific statements on social media, please do your research. Please go through the list of what people have pointed out. And then maybe you'll actually come to your own conclusion and go, wow, this guy really is an asshole, and he's a miscreant, a troglodyte, and he's not representative of the values of the Giants, and has nothing to do with politics. So
he's not representative of the views of
like, a common,
people.
Decent human being.
Like that's the thing. He went on the radio with 95.7 to try to, they brought him on. Joe Fortenbaugh, I think was the name of the host. He brought him on, and Joe.
That was great.
Yeah, Joe claimed that he brought him on to give Aubrey a fair shake, and Aubrey by the end, he again somebody who's not contrite about saying some horrific things about people, and then. At the end, when it was brought up about Alyssa Nacken being part of the coaching staff, and Huff launched into misogynistic things there, Joe's like, all right, forget it. I'm done. You are the turd that I thought you were, and that's the term he used. And that's kind of what Huff would have been. He would have been the turd in the celebration. And the Giants, like you said, they do things right. They don't want anything to rock the boat. It's not even because of the way San Francisco and the Bay Area leans. They just don't want to.
Political views are.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's all right.
I was just go ahead.
Yeah, the Giants are not worried about the leanings of the general public. It's more that they do not want a disruption. I really think that's what it boils down to when it comes to the organization.
Yeah, this is how that interview wrapped up. Obviously, it doesn't have the entire interview talking about Alyssa and all the other things, but here's the interview you just referred to.
You seem like you have no remorse for any of it, and I'm not saying you should. Your political views are yours. Your views are yours, and the First Amendment's your right. But when people get outraged about the things you say, when you talk about kidnapping Iranian women, it seems like you don't even bother to try and understand the other side when you want them to understand your side.
You sound upset, my friend.
Absolutely. It's extraordinarily offensive listening to you.
Well, I'm not one bit sad that you're offended. I'm sorry about that, pal. I can't do nothing about that.
I can completely understand why the Giants would want nothing to do with you. It's a shame because we came on today wanting to see your point of view. I came on today thinking, you know what, maybe this guy, just because it's the Bay Area, they're going too hard on him, that maybe they lean a little too left here and he's getting a bad deal. And now I'm regretting bringing you on because I'm thinking to myself, you know what? He's exactly the turd he makes himself out to be on social media. Hang up on him. We're done. Aubrey Huff, former San Francisco Giant, run that guy.
Oh, that was awesome.
Run that guy.
Run that guy. Yeah,
it's a shame because Huff he was a big part of it. The thong was such a good, kitschy, fun thing, but it's not a political leaning thing. It really isn't. Huff was getting amused that the host was getting offended. It's like there's no need to drop a turd bomb in the middle of a ceremony. And I totally get why guys like Buster Posey didn't say anything. He was just kind of like, that's between them. Like I live less than 2 hours away from Buster Posey's hometown, so I kind of got a feel for the kind of people he grew up around.
Sure.
And they lean that way. They absolutely do. But I have to tell you, even they would probably admit that it's a little too far when you're talking about certain things. But even if they feel the same way, they're not stupid enough to open their mouth and bring it on and be as just adversarial as Huff wants to be. And all he's looking for is attention. And after this segment on our podcast, this will be the last time he'll ever get attention from us.
Yeah, Aubrey Huff is a bully, and he's a dick, and he's misinformed and not a very intelligent, educated person. And it stinks because he was a valuable contributor to the team. A lot of people are saying this is violating his First Amendment rights. No, it's not, people. The First Amendment is the government not being able to censor you. It has nothing to do with a private organization not inviting you. That'd be like you and I are friends, and then a few years from now, Eric, you do some horrible shit, and I don't invite you to my birthday party, but I invite all our other friends, right?
Yeah.
Did I violate your First Amendment right? Like, that's exactly the same thing. They're having a party. He's not invited. That's it.
Right.
That's all that happened. There's no violation of First Amendment right.
Right. It's a consequence. The First Amendment protects you from censorship of your speech, but not from consequences of your speech.
Exactly.
And we see it happen every day in our culture, specifically now with social media, with the ladies calling on people barbecuing and people selling lemonade, and then they get their comeuppance as well. It's just it's not what the Giants want. It's not what the Giants need, and it's good that they got it out of the way now. Huff, I think, said he wasn't going to be he was going to be quiet about it and release a statement on his own. But since the Giants came out and said something, he decided to say something. Yeah. So he's the backed into the corner guy right now, and he's going to say whatever the hell he can just to keep getting airtime.
Yeah, I did have an exchange with him 2 years ago. It was 2 Novembers ago. About because I'm a marine biologist, and so I have a very large education in evolution. It's part of my job to understand the consequences of evolution and adaptation in marine organisms, and so I feel like I'm fairly well educated in the subject. And I have a master's degree too. So. And to see him and talk about how evolution didn't happen because we couldn't have come from monkeys, And I politely corrected it and said, no, we didn't evolve from monkeys. Monkeys and human beings both evolved from a common ancestor. So no, we did not evolve from monkeys. And he's like, what? Blah, blah. And so it started this whole back and forth where everything I replied with was just a very calm, factual statement and an encouraging, Aubrey, I suggest that you check out this link and this link and this link and understand, the geologic timescales in which we're talking about evolutionary adaptation and changes happening. It's not like it happens over a year or 10 years. It's like watching your grass grow. You can't see it in 3 seconds, but you can see it in 3 days. It's the same thing on a geologic timescale. You can't see it in 10 years or even 100 years, but you can see it in 1,000,000 years. And people have a tough time with that concept. And so he just was rejecting everything I was throwing at him. But it was fun because I'd say 9 out of 10 people, because it started to catch fire and it got very viral. And then all sorts of people were piling on top of my tweets and replying to him, going, douchebag, you're a baseball player. This guy's a scientist. You're trying to tell him? Like, he's not telling you how to hit a fastball, but you can tell him that evolution didn't happen? Like, come on. It was great to go through all that stuff. But anyway. He's.
Yeah. What all right. I liked your analogy. I'm going to take it. I liked your analogy of the grass growing. I'm totally going to use that. Like, I can't wait to use that in real life. That's a great analogy on the watching the grass grow. You can't see it, in the short time, but you can in the long term. I like that.
That's why people have a hard time with the concept of evolution. They just think like the way we exist and animals exist right now, that's the way it's always been and that's the way it will always be. And they reject, obviously, all the fossil evidence. They reject the DNA evidence. They reject the microevolution that we see, like in successful generations of fruit flies, Drosophila or whatever, where they're actually evolving on a generational basis because they reproduce so quickly. And it's like, okay, well, then just extrapolate that over centuries to thousands of years to hundreds of thousands of years. There you go. That's all you need. It's common knowledge. Not common knowledge. It's common sense, right? To just put these data points together and understand how the world works. But, a lot of it is a religious thing, I understand. But a lot of it is also a time scale thing, and people just can't comprehend it. But, all right. So
it's back to what I said earlier, adapt or die.
Adapt or die. That's right.
Thus
concludes
the Marine Biology podcast for the week. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Marine Biology. The MLB playoffs. They dropped a bomb a little over a week ago that they might be changing the MLB playoff structure. Not this season, obviously, but maybe next season. Not something they would implement. I think a CBA has to be agreed upon, but they would not implement it like they did with the wild card the first time. And it was an interesting thing. Both leagues would add a 7th playoff team, so there would be 3 wild cards. And then the wild card rounds would be a best of 3 series instead of just the one game. And instead of having the regular 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 format, baseball is tinkering with the idea of allowing the higher seeded teams, the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4 seed, which is basically the division record with the second best record in the league, third best record in the league, division winner, and then the first wild card with the best record, they would then get to choose their opponents, which I think is just it's an interesting wrinkle. And so there's 2 steps to this process. One, adding a 7th team to make 3 wild cards and adding more pennant races, and then 2, the selecting of a team. Did you I know you saw when this came out. What were your first reactions, and then have you thought about it some more, and do you have those same reactions?
That's a good question. My first reaction was hell no. That was my first, just gut, the first, sense of everything. The reason is, at least right off the bat, is because I don't like diluting the playoff field. I like the fact that baseball has always had the fewest number of qualifiers for the playoffs, because I think that's a better representation of the best teams in the league. I mean, you play 162 games, for God's sakes. The ones who float to the top really should be the best teams, because that is a long-ass season. I mean, NFL is only 16 games. And you could make an argument that, some of those wild card and bubble teams who just missed the playoffs, all they needed was one kick to go a different way earlier in the season. They would have had to win instead of a loss, and that would have put them in the playoffs. Most of the time with baseball, that's not the case. It's a accumulation of strikeouts and missed chances that will contribute to 3, 4, 5 extra losses that make you miss the playoffs. So I already think that adding the second wild card back in 2012 was already diluting the field a little too much, but then the Giants benefited off of that, obviously. So that worked out well for them, and it has worked well for other teams. Now, that said, adding a 7th team, yeah, I mean, it's 14 teams now, right? 14 out of the 30 teams. So now almost half the league would be making the playoffs.
So did I get that wrong? We have 8 teams currently, correct?
No, I'm sorry.
10 teams. I did it wrong. Yeah, we have 10 teams currently. So I'm getting mixed up because the football one talked about a bye for the 1 seed. Now baseball,
right?
They're not having that, are they?
We both just did that. We both just got mixed up because the NFL's also looking at expansion, adding a 7th.
I gotta open a tab.
Wild card team, and then the first team would get the bye. That's correct. So I mean, I wasn't thinking of the first round bye, but what is interesting about this process is, you're right now. So right now you have 3 divisional winners and 2 wild cards. So it's 5 teams per league, 10 teams total. This would add an extra wild card, so it would make it 12 teams.
Oh, I take it back. Right? It is 14. No, it is 14. They would give a bye. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So it is kind of like the football one. They would give a bye to the 1 seed. Mm-hmm. And then the 2 and 7, 3 and 6, 4 and 5 would play. And 2, 3 and 4, actually 2 and 3, get to choose who they want to play out of the 5, 6, 7 pool. And then the number 1 seed gets to choose who they want to play out of who's left.
Major League Baseball reportedly looking
That's an autoplay. Sorry about that, folks.
And then apparently the third seed, and then apparently they get to choose themselves, the first seed, who they want to play in the second round.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so what was interesting about this whole process is it throws in a little bit of Bachelor into the reality TV into it, because now they're talking about, okay, well, now the top seeds can choose their opponent, and now that's funky, man. That is funky, because could you imagine, the Yankees are the number 1 seed, right, and the Red Sox make it as a wild card, and then the Rays make it as a wild card. That's all AL East. But anyway, point being, the Yankees would choose, are they going to choose their arch rivals, the Red Sox? Or are they going to go with the Rays? Obviously it depends on a lot of things, but it'll be interesting because it's also going to give a lot of motivation to the team that was picked. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It'd be like,
yes, I love that
aspect. We're the
aspect.
easiest team? You think we're the shittiest team out of the playoffs? F you.
Right.
I think that would add a really, really interesting component to the playoffs. So in this newfangled world, I mean, I definitely am more of a traditionalist, so I don't like change. I'm resistant to it. But again, expanding to that many teams just, to me, dilutes the product. The one thing I will say is it does increase the wild card round to a series of 3 games as opposed to just a single elimination. I know it adds excitement. I know it's been good for baseball, and obviously the Giants, again, benefited twice off of that. They beat Pittsburgh in one of the elimination games, and, of course, New York in the second elimination game, both pitched by Madison Bumgarner. So it's helped them in both occasions, but I don't like playing 162 games, and then it just comes down to one game. It's like, man, you just have one off night, and that's it. You're done. At least 3 games gives you a tiny bit of wiggle room, you know?
That's always been the wild card. Yet I've accepted the wild card because I love the whole balls to the wall, you know.
It's exciting.
It's the flip of the coin type game. My initial reaction is kind of still where I'm at. I kind of like the idea. So reading through again, the number 1 seed doesn't pick who they play in the second round.
They get the bye, right?
Shakes out. Yeah, they just get a bye, and then it shakes out based on seeding. Mm-hmm. But in the first round, 2 and 3 get to choose, and I love the concept of teams sitting on planes waiting to find out on the ESPN national broadcast
selection show. Yeah.
Right. On the baseball selection show, they're like, are we flying to New York or are we flying to Oakland? You know, something like that. I get kind of a kick out of that. I love the theater of it. I love the drama of it. And I love more baseball. Mm-hmm. I really have no problem with that part of it. Baseball, more than any other sport, you can get hot over the course of a month and win a title. The Nationals showed it this year. The Giants showed it in 14. The Giants kind of showed it in 10 a little bit too, if you want to be honest. We've seen teams do that, just get hot and go on a run. One of the Cardinals championships was like that. That happens more than, say, in football, where the number 1 and number 2 seeds are getting to the Super Bowl year after year after year, and it's going boilerplate. So anything to kind of shake it up with baseball and put more importance on having the best record in your league, I think is kind of cool. I kind of like that added pressure, because if the Yankees and we'll just use Red Sox both have the same record going in the last day of the season, you know, and they both want that number 1 seed first round bye, they're going to pitch their ace to get a few days off, and then whoever loses their ace for the wild card round, but they get to play at home. You know what I mean? There's so many storylines that come from it. And I think that's what I like about it.
So last year, the other thing it's going to do, again, this is a positive of it. I don't like the 14 teams making it, but it's not like I'm going to panic about it. One thing that it will do, of course, more teams will be in it till the end. Of course. Last year, you would have had, Washington and Milwaukee were the 2 wild cards, but we would have had 2 more, and it would have been the 86-win New York Mets and the 85-win Arizona Diamondbacks. They both would have qualified as the 6 and 7 seeds, and the Cubs would have missed it by 1 game at 84 wins, and that's crazy to me. And then, of course, San Francisco ended with 77 wins, so they would have only been 8 games back of the last wild card. I mean, that's a lot, but you know what I'm saying. It's not like they were 20 games back. In the American League, it would have been the 93-win Cleveland Indians making the 6th seed, and then the big drop-off to the 84-win Boston Red Sox would have made it as the 7th seed. So you do have these funky years, like you just mentioned, the Cardinals in 2011. They won 83 games. They were 83 and 79, I believe, that year. And so barely above 500, but the way the wild card just shook out that year, that's what happened. And they won the World Series. So stranger things like that have happened. Now, expanding it to a 6th and 7th seed, I believe in the future you will see teams at or possibly even below 500 making the playoffs, much like the NBA and sometimes the NHL. So
that's what worries me there too.
That's what worries me too. It's that's I don't want to see a team coming in with 80 wins and then making a run and winning the World Series. Baseball is such a unique sport because in basketball, generally, I mean, the best teams, it's always the number 1 and 2 seeds and occasional 3 that make it to the NBA Finals, you know? But in baseball, like, we've already seen it with the Giants and last year with the Nationals. The one who sneaks in as the number 10 seed can win the whole thing, no problem. So a team with 80 wins could sneak in and they go on a run and they win the whole thing. And it's like, do we want that? I mean, yes, if it's a Giants, but
yeah, but baseball's funny like that because you mentioned basketball. Athletes can take over in basketball.
Yes.
Certain guys, Michael Jordan and the gang, they were always going to shake out better over 7 games. The Warriors at their peak, they were always going to shake out better in their 7-game series just because they had more talent than the other teams. In baseball, you have a pitcher who has a bad day. You have 2 pitchers who have bad days in a row. All of a sudden, bam, you're behind the 8 ball and your talent might not win out. And it totally changes the way it is, which is why, you mentioned fewer playoff teams puts more emphasis on the 162 regular season, which is more indicative of who's the better team in the long run. So, I mean, I'm curious to see if it does come to pass. Apparently they do, need to look and work out things and see if they actually want to do this, and the players would have to agree to it. But I'm for more baseball. I don't need all the extra picking stuff if they don't want to do that. Just do the 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 or 5. I'd be fine with that. I don't care. I like more baseball. I like the idea. But like I worry about the 1 year an 80 and 82 team wins it all. And, then it's tarnished forever, it feels like. And we don't want to do that because, there's a lot of change in baseball and people are resistant to change. So we don't want to shock the system completely.
No, because this year we already have the institution of the 3-batter minimum rule. That'll be fun to see how that shakes out in certain series and certain tight games in the end, versus a traditional way that a manager would position and manage his relievers in the last part of the game. We may have the DH come into the National League in the next couple of years. We might have robot umpires coming. I mean, there's a lot of change happening in baseball, and I think the next 5 to 10 years is going to see significant changes in the traditional construction of the sport. And, I'm against a lot of it, but it's not going to change my experience of enjoying the game. I know that.
That's how I feel. I'm like, even if I don't like something, I'm not going to really put an emphasis on it 5 years, 10 years from now because it'll just be part of the game and I'll be used to it,
Yep. So, I mean, the DH was instituted in 1973, the year I was born, and reading documents and articles from back then, you would have thought that the world was flipped upside down, But, it's adapted. It's part of the game now. The expanded playoffs a couple of times is now part of the game. It's, baseball has to evolve just like all the other sports. I mean, granted, they don't have as many rule changes as the other sports do, but I think
we
make the
know
game
what a
more
catch
enjoyable.
is in baseball.
Yeah, that's right. It was his momentum was carrying him, and it scraped the ground.
I mean, they even adjusted the catch rule in baseball a few years ago, and they made it more common sense. Like, it was one of those brilliant moves that they did, where they're like, because back in the day, you had to willfully remove the baseball from your glove. Mm-hmm. And they decided now, because so many guys, they'll catch the ball, they'll come running in, they'll take like 10 steps, and then they'll flip the ball with their glove to their teammate. And it's like, that guy made the catch, we don't need to wait to make sure he takes the ball out with his bare hand. So they just, made it if the guy catches and then maintains control of the ball. If you catch the ball, slam into the wall and drop it, it's still a drop. But other than that, you catch the ball, you take a couple steps, you caught the ball. So they don't tweak rule changes like that too often. You're right. So the change has to come in other fundamental ways.
So I had skipped this at the top. I don't know how. I guess my eyeballs just. I was the one that wrote it too. But you put it back in there. Why don't you take this away? Because this is just fun. This is just fun.
It's funny. I realized it when you mentioned him earlier, but apparently it came out in the last week that our old friend Madison Bumgarner has been competing in rodeos in team, I think it's calf roping competitions, under the pseudonym Mason Saunders. And there are just so many layers to this that are great. First of all, he took down a first prize with his partner, and it makes you wonder, did he keep any of the money or just give the guy the money? And second, he said he chose Mason because it was close enough to Madison when you remove a couple letters that his wife could still holler his name, and he would know who she's talking to. And apparently this has been an open secret among this rodeo community for the last few years, and we didn't even know about it. And I just think it's fascinating. I think it's a great story. I do not question his dirt bike accident and all that crap now. I don't. Madison Bumgarner is a throwback. He is a different kind of man. I've grown up and known men just like that with horses and things like that. So I totally get his want and his desire to do those things. And it's just really cool that 6 foot, what is he, 6'8"? Madison Bumgarner is being in the rodeo as Mason Saunders out there winning calf roping competitions. I mean, it's the best story so far to come out of spring training.
Oh my God. When I heard the story, I was laughing my ass off and said, you could not have written a better story about an alternate ID for Madison Bumgarner. Like, that's exactly what I mean. What he chopped wood for a company out in the forest. I mean, like, this is him, man. He is Paul Bunyan. He is not an equestrian guy, but he loves his horses. He loves rope, and he loves all this stuff. And you can't take the cowboy out of him. And what was so cool about it, though, is that he won that $26,000 with his partner or whatever. Is the community kept it all quiet. And you would have thought that there would have been one person out of the hundreds that have probably interacted with him or seen the rodeo or were there and they said, hey, that looks like Madison Bumgarner. You would have thought there would have been one person that would have leaked this to the media. But I think they all collectively realized, no, that's going to make this place, the media are going to descend upon it. It's going to ruin this whole. Yeah, they were doing it out of self-preservation and as a kind thing to not out Madison Bumgarner. Like, he's just one of us. He's just roping calves, whatever. We don't care that he throws 90 miles an hour and won 3 World Series. He's one of us, and I think they love that aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm somebody. I grew up around horses. My dad was a bit of a cowboy, so I knew cowboy men. I've been to rodeo plenty, and those guys. That's a tight enough knit community where Madison was not hiding his face in pictures.
No,
it's not
he's
like
smiling
he was,
right there, looking right at the camera.
That's how they were just like, that's what he likes to do. We don't need to bother him with anything. It's his community.
That was what was weird about it, though, is that, okay, it's one thing about pictures and he's just smiling for it, but the rodeo, that stadium or whatever, put that picture on their Facebook page back in December. And it's like, okay, well, I guess people who are only associated with that rodeo like that group, and they're the only ones that see them. So I guess there isn't too much of a risk, but Andrew Baggerly, who broke this story with another writer, he was on KMBR the other day, and they were like, dude, you blew Madison's cover. Is he pissed? And he's, he's like, it's part of the job, man. He's like, when you get stories like this, you can't hide them. You got to go for it. And he's like, Madison was definitely taken aback, but he wasn't mad at me. He's like, oh boy, here we go. Well, yep, this is what I've been doing. Like, he totally copped to it and had no problem admitting it. And they asked him for a source, and he's like, I can't reveal my source, guys. So I wonder if it was finally someone in the rodeo community or someone associated with someone there who leaked it, because then he got a link to that picture from that Facebook page and went, holy shit, that's Madison Bumgarner.
It'd be great to uncover that. Madison Bumgarner, and this was part of the appeal with wanting to keep him forever, is he is a folklore hero type character. They saved a baby bunny, him and his wife, from a rattlesnake like 4 years ago at spring training. And cut open the rattlesnake all the way down to a T. He's just cut from a different cloth. He is Paul Bunyan-esque, like you said. And so he's a folklore hero. So that's why Bags had to write it, because this makes sense in the story of Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah.
And that's why Bumgarner himself can't be that angry. It's just like, that's what I've been doing, because that's what Bum responds with. He's like, it's what I like to do. And then even Baggerly, he apparently asked Bumgarner if it's okay in his contract. And Bumgarner's like, I don't know. You have to talk to the higher ups. And so Bags went to the president. The president's like, I don't deal with contracts. Go talk to the GM. And the GM's like, I'm sorry, I don't give away specifics of contracts. So everybody kind of sidestepped the question as to whether or not Mason Saunders will continue to compete in calf roping rodeos. But nobody seemed overly, like you said, upset about it. And it adds to the layer of Madison Bumgarner. And I hope we have 2 or 3 more stories about him come out in the next 5 to 10 years, just like this.
Yeah. I guess the actual sport of calf roping, especially team calf roping, they're riding horses, they have lassos, they one partner gets the head, one partner gets the hindquarters, but they're not jumping off their horses and subduing the calf and pounding them into the ground like you see in kind of a traditional rodeo. So
no, they still do have a get off though, because they do have to get to their calf. So the get off is the one portion when he hops the horse. The get off is sorry. that is the one part that you worry about injury, shredding a knee as he lands funny or something like that. But other than that, I mean, he's not going to hurt himself.
No. I mean, I guess the chances, of injury they're still pretty low compared to, driving your car down the freeway, right? So,
yep. Walking in my yard and stepping in a hole on accident. I mean, it's the same thing.
Playing flag football and pulling your groin, which I'm still dealing with.
That's the worst.
Yeah, it's bad. So San Jose Giants are actually already put out an event night, and they're going to have Mason Saunders night at the Yard, and so that's going to be great.
I love that. I really do. Lean into it, and I'm sure Madison won't be mad. I mean, it's out there. There's nothing you can do.
Now, again, here we are talking about, guys caught with PEDs, the former steroid era, now this Astros cheating scandal, and then Madison Bumgarner ropes calves because he likes it so much and it's his hobby. Like, it's just I love it. It's so fun.
We need more stories like
wholesome.
that in baseball. Yeah, exactly. We need more stories like that in baseball. The problem is the injury factor, so guys don't go out and do stuff. I mean, look at Cespedes last year. Yeah. He was dealing with a wild boar on his farm and he broke his ankles.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's not good. Not good at all. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it here for episode 190 of the TortureCast. You can follow us, as always, on Twitter at TortureCast. Like us on Facebook. You can email us at mail@torturecast.com. I have another email, too, chat@torturecast.com, if you want to get a hold of me specifically. But that first email will go there as well. You can follow us individually. Eric is at 2outhits with the number 2. I am at ChadK21. Got anything else there, Eric?
Within the next week or so, I'll take a look at the schedule like I do every year. What fun dates are popping up? What are good times for fans to go to the ballpark? From giveaways and stuff like that. And take a look at the 2020 schedule and see how it shakes out. I can't do it in a predictive sense because we don't know what the team's going to look like. So let's just see which series stick out and look kind of fun to us this year. Like last year, we knew the Red Sox series would be fun at the end of the year. We didn't realize it would be that fun with Yastrzemski. Yeah. But there's always stuff to look forward to. Like there's a rematch in Detroit of the 2012 World Series this year, which I'm hoping to be at. They'll be in Atlanta or in April again. I'm possibly hoping to be at that one. So I'll look into some of that stuff. Their longest home stands and certain times when they get to spend all their time in the West. And honestly, looking ahead at their schedule, if the Giants prove to have some talent and a decent team, they have a shot. They really do. But I'll look at those kinds of things, in a piece in the next couple of weeks or sometime. We still got 4 weeks until opening day, so we're not running at full capacity just yet.
I think they need to expand the playoffs to about 24 teams for them to have a shot, Eric. Just saying. I'm just kidding.
I don't think they're going to be like the 6-7 win team Vegas thinks. I think they'll be in the mid-70s.
And we'll obviously, as we do every year, we'll have our season preview edition podcast, which will be right before the regular season starts. And that's when we give our predictions for wins and losses, MVPs, and all that good stuff. But look forward to that. So, we'll probably be recording again in roughly a week and a half plus. We typically do Mondays, but the schedule is a little bit different this week. That's why we're recording on a Thursday. But, we'll check in here probably in a couple of Mondays to see how the spring training is going and see how things are progressing with Gabe Kapler's new band of merrymen. So
there'll be cuts and stuff by then, so we'll have some things to talk about.
That's true. Again. Yeah. I think they have 70-something players in camp right now, which is just insane.
It's ridiculous.
That's way too many players, but they decided they needed to take a look at a lot of them, and that's the hard thing is getting the pitchers out there because when you have as many pitchers as the Giants have to look at, all these kids are getting just 1 or 2 innings, and that's probably all they're going to get because they know they're not going to be with the club. So get out there, try to impress in your 1 inning of work, and then practice the rest of the spring, and then get shipped off to AA or something. So
yeah, generally.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to episode 190 of the TortureCast, and we'll see you next time for episode 191. Until then, a-boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.